380. 380. 300 doesn't really work that well with tenors. And we're going to talk about giants yet again. Giants. It's a fascinating subject, and there's more and more information coming to light as we speak. But more about that later. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, whatever shape, form, or color it might be. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a great tabletop digital radio. And I will tell you in a second what I'm talking about, the color reference. If you missed Solaris' show, shame on you. Shame on me. Always shame on me. She's awesome. If you don't know who Solaris is, go and find out. She's the show just before ours. And she has other shows. She has published books. And she has got, I guess published, you call it as well, published documentaries. That's for all the people that don't read anymore, that's video. You can watch video if you want. And it was John Storm she spoke to about, it was, I think it's Irish. Is Tuatha Dé Danann, is that Irish? I think that's Irish folklore, right? If I'm not completely mistaken. But yeah, so that's pretty awesome. It always is. So go and listen to her. Now, if you can't or don't know how, I can tell you how. You simply pay $5.95 a month to access the Freedom Slips archives on Revolution Radio. Yeah, Freedom Slips archives. The archives contain all of the shows from all of the show hosts with all the guests, for all time, in fact. So for $5.95, you can access all of it as much as often and as you like. And Solaris' shows are there, of course. Okay, so $5.95 a month. Just go to the homepage, revolution.radio, and you can subscribe on that page if you wanted to. There's just a little link that says archives. Pretty straightforward stuff. Nighthawk has done a pretty good job, and I think an excellent job designing the web page. Is easy to use, it's not cluttered, and all the stuff that you need to know is on the front page, so go and check it out. As part of our introduction, as always, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast, which is Australia. And for me here in Pemulwuy, it's the Darug people. And for Dave?
The Darkinjung.
Thank you, Dave. And we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. No, this is not a gimmick. This is something we feel fairly strongly about, considering what we're interested in. And the history of the Aboriginal people in Australia is being pushed further and further back in time. Not surprisingly, of course, there's a really interesting movement here in Australia. I guess it's a global movement, but it certainly started here, which I guess advocates the out of Australia theory, or at the very least, out of Australia as well as Africa. In fact, I believe that we will be very surprised to find out, if we ever do, what the progeny of the human race is. And this is really part of what today's show is about as well. The giants, I believe, another branch of the tree of Homo sapiens, along with Homo fiorensis, Denisovan, man, Neanderthal, right, and a whole bunch of others. Two, in fact, which we haven't been able to identify yet, but whose DNA we carry, whose genes are spliced into ours. So there's more going on in Homo sapiens than we had previously thought, and there's probably more going on than even Dave and I suspect at this point. Australia has been, cold. I wasn't here last week. I was actually in the Philippines for work. Interestingly, though, Dave, let me tell you, security is extremely high there. Every building that I walked into, the office, the hotel had metal detectors. So you walk through a metal detector screen just like at the airport. They put your bags through a metal detector, or like your x-ray machine as well, just like at the airport. For every building that I went into, I had to do that. In fact, there was a walkway, like a bridge over the road, which connected my office building with the shopping mall. And that shopping mall, or the bridge, I should say, also had a security checkpoint at either end. So if you wanted to cross from one, it's a thing. From one side to the other, you had to go through security. So clearly security is a high concern, and it just, I guess it brought to my mind the fact that in Australia, and certainly in America, I think, and in certain parts of Europe still, we're fairly lucky not to see submachine guns on the street every day carried by the police. So this is not military security. This is private security here, or rather in the Philippines, as well as police carrying those submachine guns. And yeah, you just realize I guess, how lucky you are that you don't have to worry about submachine guns in the street too much. You know, it's because it's a funny thing. I remember when I was smaller, probably about before I turned 10, and then just pre-teens, then my early teenage years as well. We went to Turkey every holiday because part of my family is from there, and there was the times of the military coups. I don't know, you probably don't remember that, but the military was in charge, and you saw soldiers with submachine guns in the street in Istanbul on every major corner, behind sandbags, sometimes just standing on the street corner, but always in threes or fours, battle ready, I guess, in fatigues and such. So yeah, it's something else. I'm not really shocked when I see it, but I am reminded how lucky we are that we don't have to see it every day in the country, here in Australia where we live. So I think that's a good thing. So yeah, well, I don't know how. So Dave, how was your week in Australia?
Okay. Good. Surprising international events. Some massive earthquakes. My goodness. Just above New Zealand, between there and say, Vanuatu, there was a 7.4. Like, that's big. I remember when I was growing up, big was 6, right? But I shouldn't complain. Look, everyone cries wolf about, there is a tsunami. But tsunamis only occur if there's a shift upward or downward between the two plates. And when they're a transverse fault, which means they move along the fault with respect to the other side of the fault, they move along, then it's really unlikely that you're going to get a tsunami. I mean, it's almost impossible. It has to shift it vertically for there to be a tsunami, for an earthquake. Anyway, so look, the earthquakes are going crazy. International tensions. Mackie, every single time I see the US versus Iran, all I can think in my head is Gulf of Tonkin. And it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah.
Like, I still remember the ship, the Japanese owner of the ship who said he hit a landmine. So he didn't. The Americans said that he hit a mine, and it was the Iranian Imperial Guard or something that blew it up or did something. But there's 2 clear holes in the side of the ship, way above the waterline, and the owner of the ship says he saw something fly into it. Right? Okay, the 2 stories aren't consistent with each other, and that disappeared. Okay, so what we'll do is, I'm thinking, just being silly here, tinfoil hat zone, American military, we've really got to get that war started with Iran. Okay, how are we going to do it? Let's just, sacrifice, let's move a pawn forward, right? So let's put a drone out there and fly it around, goodness knows for how long, until the Iranian trigger fingers decide to shoot at it. So it gets shot down. So yeah, it was unmanned. But see, this is the thing, Dave, and this is the dangerous thing right now. So you got Pompeo and Bolton that have many times have said, "Yep, we're gonna have to destroy the Iranian regime that exists ever since 1980, right? 1981, since Ayatollah Khomeini took over. There's actually a story behind that as well, but I won't go into that. The interesting thing, though, is that so Pompeo and Bolton have said so many times. That's the game plan. We have to bring Iran down, and so they shot down this unmanned drone. And this drone, you don't think of it like a Kmart drone, you buy for $100. This is a $180 million plane. It's a $180 million plane. It's fairly large, right? So it's a sizable plane. Completely, not autonomous, but certainly no one on board flying it. And apparently the Iranians at the same time had a manned airplane in their sights as well, but they chose to shoot down the unmanned aircraft, which is better. Now Trump here, interestingly, gave the order to retaliate.
But 10 minutes prior to the strike, he said this. I'm saying this because he tweeted it. He tweeted the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I'm giving away state secrets here. He's probably the most communicative president ever. Anyway, so he said, okay, well, with 10 minutes to go, he goes, well, how many people do we expect to kill here? And the military came back, with this strike that we have planned, we're looking probably at 150 casualties. And to his credit, and you got to take it at face value, he said, oh no, that's a completely disproportionate response. Meaning, so yes, they shot down one of our unmanned drones, didn't really kill anyone. It cost us $180 million. Not really, it's not peanuts, but it certainly won't break our bank. But I don't want to kill 150 people for it. And kudos to Donald Trump for doing that. I think it's incredible to admit it.
I heard the planes were in the air, inbound to the target.
Yeah,
and he made the person stand down.
Yeah, it was 10 minutes to strike. 10 minutes. So yes, they had to. They had to. Yeah. So I think that's actually quite a courageous decision, to be honest with you. I mean, because once you're committed, and you just go with it, right? Now he said, I have scruples, I have doubts. Let's not do this. And any other president would have probably gone ahead with it, right? He didn't. He has risen in my esteem, certainly, for choosing the high road. Not saying that it won't end up going forward, but at least it's not the Americans. It is not Donald Trump that's trigger happy here. Okay, mm-hmm. If Bolton or Pompeo had been in charge, there'd be a smoldering crater where Tehran used to be. I guarantee it.
Bring carpet bombing back. That's
like in 50th. That's what you need. Daisy cutters, more daisy cutters. No, in 50th time, we'll go to his father. Hey, Dad, doing a geography test. Lake Iran, the radioactive lake. That's in Central Asia. Oh, don't worry about that. Yeah, just tell him it's a lake.
It's the Iranian Sea. It'll be the Iranian
Sea.
No.
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say daisy cutters. I had it when AI is overruling all of us. There'll be daisy cutters out there just mowing people down, right? So, look. I heard, and I watched an interview. I heard some people talking about it, commentators talking about it, but I saw the actual base interview where Donald Trump he's seated and surrounded by news media, and they're saying, "Tell me more about this." So this event, and he said, well, we lost a drone, and they said, well, when are we gonna? This is the media. When are we gonna strike back at them? And he goes, well, you'll see. When is it? You'll see. Yeah. So it doesn't look like it's off the table. It just looks like he's sticking to his guns. Remember how he, mind the Freudian slip there, sticking to his premise, which is he's not going to advertise a conflict. He's not going to say, okay, remember CNN, right? We want you on this beach. We're going to get you on this beach at this time, and then they're live broadcasting the war, the invasion. Do you remember that? Because that's not the style in which he's going to play it. I think he's not going to get the media involved until it's already happening. I've heard that the commentators talking about it being maybe a night strike or something like that. Who knows when it's going to be? But he says it's going to be a few weeks away. But that doesn't mean maybe that's just the wrong information or, misinformation. We don't know.
Look, and that's correct. Of course we don't know. And, if you did know and you talked about it, then they put you into Guantanamo fastening and he's spinning top. Gone, boom, gone.
He might have to change his diet.
Jumpsuit, but orange is the new black, right? So
it is. He might have to change his diet because he seems to tweet a lot on the toilet.
Right, that's interesting. Now,
sorry, there was a TED talk. There was a TED talk where people are saying they're requesting Wi-Fi in the bathrooms these days, and is a what? Why would you possibly want better Wi-Fi in the bathroom? Is because people are actually using that 5 minutes to do work or be connected still. They don't want to lose connection.
True.
So that's
true.
why it was a joke. I don't know. I don't really care whether he tweets in a toilet. I really don't care. You know, maybe he gets some,
That's a fair point.
some quiet time.
Quite dumb. It's my thinking. It's my thinking room. What are you doing? And look, and it is a time of solitary normally reflection.
Yes.
If you know what I mean,
If you
and
look at it that
all
way.
of us could use more of it. But yeah. So look, but the interesting thing is this, though, right? Yet again, our eyes are drawn into the Middle East, the Levant. You know, the land of Tigris and Euphrates. The connecting bridge between Asia, Europe, and Africa, really. It's that chunk of land that spans these three continents or connects them. And you have to ask yourself, you know, why is it that yet again there is such a focus on this, right? Oh, wow, that's amazing, Dave. Let's talk about that in a second, actually. But certainly, it is the single most disputed area in the world, the Middle East.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the oil. I mean, the oil is a relative recent thing. Oil they've been after for let's call it 100 years, right? To be generous. For 100 years, it's been about oil, and that's all good. Also, all gas, all that stuff. The Middle East doesn't hold the largest reserves in the world. Venezuela does. Okay, Venezuela has got the largest oil reserves. But you don't see that kind of contention in South America or Mesoamerica for that matter. You see it in the Middle East because the Middle Eastern conflict or conflict in the Middle East goes back thousands of years. Thousands of years. The three major religions. I mean, there are others, but certainly they make up for most of the people on the planet. Jews, Catholics, as well as Muslims. All three. The Middle East a sacred place, and they all covered Jerusalem. Yeah, for the Muslims, it's the third holiest site after Mecca and Medina. For the Jews and Christians, I would say the holiest for various reasons. Jerusalem, that is. It's the site of the original temple, Temple of Solomon. It is the site of Jesus' crucifixion. Yeah, it is also the site or what triggered the Crusades. Okay, so for thousands of years, this has been the most land in the world. There has been not a single piece of land anywhere else in the world that was as disputed, as fought over, as soaked in blood as this comparatively small region. If you look at it from space, it isn't that big.
No,
and it doesn't
right.
look that inviting either.
No.
So why is that, Dave? The answer is, I think we have to cast our mind back even further, right? And I'm talking here from anything from the Levant, which is anything from Turkey down into the Arab Peninsula, out into Central Asia, Afghanistan, and then down again probably into Northern Africa, that's Egypt. So that area, that's what I'm talking about, the area of the world. Because for all intents and purposes, from what we've learned, some of the most profound things happened there. It was the interaction of us, or maybe the creation of us and our forms with the Anunnaki and the Igigi.
That's right.
And again, it's in line with today's show theme, Giant, we believe the Igigi to be the progenitors of the giants, the fathers, if you will, and specifically the fathers, because the mothers are very specifically, yet again that word, human females, or females of Earth-born females. The fathers are not. The mothers are absolutely. Okay, and this is really what comes across all the legends echoed throughout. So it is always Gaia or some represent, even if it's an abstract representation of the Earth, but it's always, the mother is always the Earth. Yes. So it's an Earth-born female at the very least, once you take the mythological layer out of it. And now, I still believe that we will find amazing things in that area. Yeah, I mean, it's a big area, and we haven't really started scratching the surface yet as far as archaeology is concerned, in my opinion. We should do a lot more digging, we should do a lot more looking, we should do a lot more investigations into that. But it's still the focus today for us, for everybody. Everybody's focusing on that area in the world, right? There's a reason for it.
Well, what is also happening there, right, is that the militant people who the US are fighting against recognize the value of the archaeological digs, the historical information, because we've seen them blown up by those people. They have been holding them to ransom, saying, we don't need this anymore, we're going to blow it up. And we don't know what's been lost. We do not know. But when you look around at what's pictured in that area, it's all Anunnaki. It's all it's all the winged dudes holding the handbag and a pine cone. I used to wear an onion on my belt. It was the start of the time.
A white onion, not a brown, not a white onion, but a brown, because the Kaiser stole all the white ones.
That's right. So they have rightly so some kind of pine cone device or something that looks like it's doing something. Like a handbag or something that who knows what that's for. I don't know. But the beards are all the same kind of plaited beard and knotted. So look, that we don't know what's been lost. What what are they called? Not scrolls. They're reliefs. No, the other one. The clay tablets have been rolled.
The cuneiform. The rolled ones, not the cuneiform tablets.
Yeah, so the rolled ones, the ones like newspaper. Those we don't know what's been lost there.
Are the papyri?
No, they're clay, and they carve it onto a cylinder seal. So we don't know what's been lost as far as the reproductions of the cylinder seals, where the seal itself is gone, and all that was left was a copy, like a newspaper copy. We discard the printing machine mechanism every time. So, look, you're absolutely right, Mekki. It is the hub.
There's some
it's the hub, and it makes it even more important, like you said, that it's the origin of humans.
Well, at least so we postulate. There's some funny funny symbolism within those pictures, if you will, right, of the Sumerian and Babylonian cuneiform tablets, stone reliefs, and all that. And one of them, of course, is the relative size of the Anunnaki or Igigi compared to human beings. But another one is two things. One is the all-prevalent, appearance of pine cones. A lot of them hold pine cones, and the other one is they've got a watch-like device on their right wrist for the most part. It looks like a watch. It is round, and it's always the right hand. And all the Anunnaki seem to have them, and a lot of them hold the pine cone in a way that they're presenting it to someone, or they're holding it up sort of almost eye level.
Point end first. That eye level.
Yeah, right? And the interesting thing is, in a lot of these reliefs, if you look at them very closely, not all of them, but in a lot of them, it is exactly level with where the pineal gland, would be in your brain. So they're holding it up in front of their face, and for the most part, exactly where the pineal gland would be in your head if you drew a straight line through the pine cone they're holding. So it is a fascinating thing, I have to say. I mean. And we come back to it.
Imagine if the message is, beware the dudes with the pine cones because they'll take over your brain, right?
Well,
you don't know.
Who knows, right?
We don't know. We can't decipher the message unless they're just the ruling people who came here to create us.
Yeah. What is clear, though, is that whoever wrote this whole Alien, franchise, with the latest incarnation being, of course, Prometheus and Covenant, I think.
Yeah.
They have taken a lot of material from the Sumerian and Babylonian myths. The size and appearance of the engineers, for one. How they went about to populate the early or the young Earth with life by sacrificing one of their own. Right, so if you go back to the mythology, it's actually one of the Igigi that was sacrificed, and his genetic material was used to create it. Well, our forebears, if you will, not us, but our forebears, right? So, yeah, look, again, I could go on and on. But there's something even more interesting. We will talk about, like I said, about giants in the next hour. But Dave, tell me about your experience this week, because that's really interesting.
Well, I know that we're going to have climate refugees. We've already got refugees through, wars. We have asylum seekers who, risk persecution if they return to their country, so they flee for their lives. Did you know that those people are given a ration pack when they've got the option and ability to obtain one? I'm not saying that they magically fall from space or anything, but if you're in a camp, that you receive a ration pack, one per person per week. And I was approached to go through this, and I did it through Act for Peace, and I received my ration pack. You don't get very much in it. It's very small, and I had 2 vouchers in there, and the 2 vouchers, one was for 400 grams of flour, and the other one was 1.4 kilos of rice. I didn't eat half of that rice. I just couldn't eat any more rice. There was a small bottle of oil. There was about 250 grams of oil, which isn't very much, by the way, guys. It's like 1/8 of a pound or something, right? No, 2.2. You work it out. And there was, what else was there? Oh, a tin of sardines and some kidney beans, a tin of kidney beans. Inside the fish was only 4 sardines, headless, of course, and it was that's right, 100 grams of lentils. It's really not very much food. It really isn't much food, and you really have your struggle. So on day 1 was exciting, and I'm still running with the energy from the days before. But into day 2 and day 3, my energy levels slumped, and I felt that I was certainly going to start experiencing, the lack of protein. While there's protein in the beans and there's protein in the fish, it wasn't very much of it. And in the Western diets are absolutely enormous. And I reckon that I could eat one of those box of foods size boxes each day. But you only get one for a week, so I had to split it up, and I calculated the amount of rice. Okay, 3 cups of rice a day. That's it. That's it. So if I put some, a tablespoon of lentils in it, and I cook the rice with the lentils in it, that's good. Oh, there's some chickpeas. A little tiny sachet of chickpeas. It was not even a handful. So I didn't end up eating them. And I was going to make some hummus. What I discovered on the 4th day was the flour and oil and some water and salt, and I could make a dough, and I could fry it with some of the oil, and I could make myself a little flatbread. So I did. I started eating that. And my plan was to make some hummus. I never got to it. But mixing half a sardine, mushing it up and mixing it through the rice was really getting me by. And as the level, I had to reach $500 of donations to be able to, to get 170 grams of a vegetable. Like it's not much, to be honest. So by the end of the whole week, every single person that donated, I got 1 tea bag, so I could have a tea in the morning before I left. In the end, I was really only having 2 meals a day, one about lunch, one about dinner, have a cup of tea to start the day. And through that, I lost 5 kilos, which is like 10 pounds, right? Or something like that. And I'm really not hungry anymore. So after about a week, once you adjust to not eating very much, I've got lots of energy. I found, Mackie, you'll be surprised at this. I'm usually a night owl. I like to stay up till as late as I can, and then sleep for maybe 5 to 6 hours. That's me. But I was going to sleep at like 9:30 or 8:30 in the evening. I had no energy. I slept all the whole time until 6 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't feel any better for it. Whereas my 5 or 6 hours solid, I feel great when I wake up. I'm like a 5 coffee a day kind of guy. No coffee for a week. So the things that I experience by having to achieve it, I think will stay with me forever. Being able to understand the difference between what it would be like to live as a refugee in a camp, or, and this is the way I was looking at it, imagine if it was the end of society. How little could I survive on? If I abandoned the rice part and just had flour of some kind, I'd get by with having 2 pita breads a day. That'd be enough, as long as I could eat some vegetables. Oh man, I crave vegetables so bad. End up getting some broccolini and sautéing it in a pan with some of the oil, because I could only use the oil that was given to me, so some oil and some salt. So I'd earned the right to have unlimited salt, which was really good. But I'll tell you, oh my goodness, if you have the opportunity to venture into this, do it. Do it for yourself, so you know who you are again. And it was certainly the challenge that it was all talked up to be. But I felt like I invented pita bread, because when I was making it, I was so hungry. Could you imagine? I didn't end up eating just flour and water, but I experimented, and I made things with what I had. I can only imagine what it would be like if there wasn't any electricity tomorrow. I can imagine what it would be like to have to live on it. And yeah, you complain for a couple of days, but you know what? People around me eating, it didn't bother me in the end. On the first day, I kept thinking, which neighbour could I eat? Right? Just jokingly. I thought of how could I, yeah, you're right. How could I just have some chocolate? How could I have some ice cream? How could I, and I kept thinking of all the things that I loved that I couldn't have. And there wasn't enough ingredients to make bread, like a real loaf of bread or anything. So, something else. There really wasn't much food. And I dare anyone to live on the grocery list. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, have a look at the initial photos of what was actually delivered, and good luck with that.
The thing is this, though, Dave, and this is interesting. I did something similar, but not for a good cause, just to get myself back on track. But the point is, if you live on a near starvation diet, at least some of the information or some of the tests that have been conducted, some of the research shows that you will actually live longer.
That's
so
right.
Living, like, if you don't overeat, because the theory is, and it makes sense, I guess, in a way, you don't over stress, or you don't overload your organs processing things all the time. If your organs a good rest, it's like, in a way, if you think about it, if you drink too much alcohol, your liver would eventually hurt. I mean, it's just the natural thing. It makes sense. Now imagine, so take alcohol to the side, but eating itself, if you eat too much all the time, which most of us do, then if you apply the same logic, it would mean that you're putting too much stress on your stomach, on your liver, your kidney, your bladder, your intestines, all of that, right? And your gallbladder especially. And you realize, oh yeah, hang on, that does make sense. Maybe eating less and maybe living a near starvation diet, not starvation, but near starvation diet, would actually be better for your body. Well, it is. It is better.
It is.
And you see, this is the funny. Yeah, the way the human body it was designed, and I'm using this word advisedly.
And your immune system, for that matter, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
It restarts.
In fact, yeah, it does though. It does. That's exactly right.
And my last point, because it'll drive into what you're about to say, and that is, I didn't even think the flora in my gut was able to process the kinds of foods that I was eating, because I was eating such enormous amounts of other kinds of food. It must have been quite a shock to much of my flora to understand, what on earth's this food? There's not very much. Oh, we could process this, no dramas, right?
That's it. And then, look, But you're right, though. It's just in the fact that hey, this is actually easier to do. But the point is, of course, that if you did that and if you lived that way, and you would be in a much better position. You would be much healthier and overall live a lot longer. So it is all the wrong things that we do to our bodies, and our bodies are designed to store fat. You've got an efficient metabolism. Now, I know this is going to sound backwards or counterintuitive, but your metabolism is efficient if you can store fat. If you can't store fat, you've got an inefficient metabolism, because fat storage that's your insurance policy. Okay, that's risk mitigation. Oh, there's food here. Let's eat a lot so we can store it as fat, and then when there's no food, then we'll have something to fall back on, or for the winter or whatever. So there's a reason for it. Of course, now when there's an abundance of food and we all get a lot bigger than we should be, that storage is never depleted, because we always eat more. There's never any reason for the fat stores to be depleted. And that's a bad thing, right? So the way we live is completely elbow to knee. It's I don't want to use any other words, but it's wrong. It is completely wrong, and we should definitely do what Dave did more often. And I applaud you, Dave, for sticking it through. It's a good thing, and you raised money in the process, correct?
Yeah, completely. So I raised, with the help of my friends, I raised more than 500. I think almost to 550 it was, and that goes a long way. So that's both education and food and accommodation for those refugees. It's a great thing to do for yourself, and they only do it once a year apparently. So I don't know how you'd get a ration pack otherwise, unless you yourself became a refugee. Then you'd be right on it, but you wouldn't get any donations.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, do it. I'd say do it for yourself. I realised a big difference in me, and I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to 5 coffees a day. I'm going to attempt to continue. Mackie, even though today, what I had planned for today? I had planned for, bacon and cheese, melted sandwiches, and I cooked the bacon, and I looked at it, and I had a couple of bites, and I'm not that hungry.
Yeah.
It was really weird. I would have looked like, I don't know, a Roman. I'm just imagining, because remember that they were like at the height of gluttony, right?
Oh yeah.
So I would have appeared like that before doing this and just gone, yeah, even more bacon. I'll have bacon with my bacon, please. Cheese? Yeah, on my bacon? Yep. And
I want to pick that was kept on a diet of cheese and bacon. That's what I want to eat.
Yeah, cheese in infused bacon. So that's what I planned, and I cooked it, and I just couldn't eat it. I looked at it, and that's not even at all healthy. So it's extraordinary. I wonder how the next bet was going to be how long is it going to take for me to get back to a normal diet.
Well,
I drank water. Mackie, I drank water.
Yeah. That's crazy. Hang on. Were you dirty? I thought you were thirsty. What? Water is for dirty, right? When you're dirty, you have to water.
Right, when you're dirty. So I drank it without tea or coffee in it. I didn't even boil it. I just drank it. Wow.
What?
No flavor.
Okay, so now I'm not sure what you do in there, buddy, but that doesn't sound right. you like water, like in the toilet. Water like in the toilet.
I expect you to say, I don't even know who you are anymore. That's funny. So what was even worse was Belinda was my partner. She was cooking meals for the next week, and she had a 15-litre pot making bolognese and then some soup, and she made some chowder, and it's all in the refrigerator. But she says, you might want to leave the room. And I go, no, not really. I'm just going to go to sleep. And I slept through it. I didn't... What? That's very funny. Oh. It's so not me. That's not the kind of conversations that I would normally be part of. But anyway, look, you can do it. You can live on very little. Don't fear. I know that when, or if there's we're forced into a situation where we need to live on very little, I know we can do it. Do you know, Mackie, I spoke to some ex-army guys that I know, some friends, who said that they had to share one MRE, one of those meals, those ready-to-eat meals, the ones that heat up, between 4 of them for 3 days. That's all they had. So they went as long as they could without eating first, then they ate it, and they shared it, and they went on for another 2 days or something afterward. Extraordinary. So you can do whatever your mind can allow you to do, you'll do it. And if your brain doesn't allow you to do it, you just do it anyway. Like the kind of thinking you
and that's
magical what you can push yourself to do,
very
right?
important. Yeah. But that's exactly right. The key thing here that you just mentioned is around your mind. Your mind controls your body and not the other way around. For the most part, we just give in to our bodies. We just, our body, the body will have one sugar, will want fat, will want not to move a lot because it's energy. I mean, your body is designed to preserve energy, to conserve energy, to not expend a lot of energy. So your favorite state of being is rest. You're loafing around. That's what you do. It's a thing, right? And it wants to be fed. It wants to feel good. Your body wants to feel good. So what does it do? It wants all the foods that make it feel good. You know, all the things that release certain chemicals into your bloodstream to make you feel good. Mm-hmm. Sugar is one, fat is another, right? And it's not to our body. We're completely ruled by our bodies. The mind, though, is a powerful thing. And again, it's just my own personal experience I'm going to share with you. Dave went through this, and it's brilliant, right? Now, I did it for health reasons, probably a couple of years ago, because I was feeling really bad. I was getting tingly sensation in my arms, and things didn't taste right anymore. It was funny. I drank a lot of diet drinks, which is also a bad thing. A lot of coffee, a lot of I know, right? And a lot of things just didn't go well. A lot of traveling for work, always eating out, always eating late. Of course, the wrong foods, and anyway, it goes on and on. So I go on this Chinese thing. It's
Do you know what it was called?
It was a Chinese Wellness 101. That's what they call it. Chinese Wellness 101 or something like that. And it included daily massages, acupuncture, and you had to drink this herbal broth 3 times a day. No food. There was 0 food for the first 2 weeks. Like you actually had no food, and then there was like an egg a day or a cucumber or half a cucumber a day. Depending for another 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. No, but the thing is, to your point, that the first few days are okay. Then for me, it was the 5th day, which was the worst day. After that, it becomes easier. Your body gets used to it because it is your body protesting. Like you went through that as well. Your body's like, hey, what are you doing, man? This is crazy talk. Give me some. It's like being a heroin addict and taking you off at cold turkey, right?
Yeah, right.
The cravings for sugar, right? Craving, exactly, right? Yeah, it's the gold standard, right? Sugar. I don't think heroin addiction is the gold standard. I think it's sugar addiction. To be honest with you.
We consume so much sugar, and it's all in the wrong plases, and it's disguised. And we don't food. Even. It's disguised.
No,
in
when
food
we do, we got fruit juice. That's
salt.
Good. No fruit juice. Yeah, it is 100%. Whenever you see high fructose corn syrup, that's sugar. Mm-hmm. Okay, go to the supermarket. I guarantee you, 80% of the food you find in supermarkets, like processed. I'm talking about processed foods, right? You look at what's in there. If high fructose corn sugar or corn starch, could be either or, right, is not part of it, I'll be astounded. 80% minimum, 80%, right? Mm-hmm. Any supermarket, anywhere in the world. Why? Because it's a cheap filler. It's cheap. The products you find most in foods, like, doesn't matter if it's fish or canned veggies. There are 2 things that are listed first: water and sugar. Then the ingredient. Then whatever else is in there, right? Sugar and water. Mm-hmm. If they're honest with you. Otherwise, they can put in blueberries first, then sugar and water. But it is always some form of sugar that's in there. It's a thing, right? I mean, we have come to rely on it to give us a full feeling in the belly. It's not good food. It doesn't make you feel better. It's not. You won't live a very long life. And again, clearly designed to do that. Okay, it's clearly designed to make us live shorter lives, just in line with the plans of the invisible college.
Well, you're right, Mickey.
Crazy talk.
Salt, sugar, and fat. Salt and fat make the taste go longer, and sugar makes you want to eat it again. If you watch someone try to eat slowly when they're eating popcorn, you'll have one or two, at a time, and then given just a couple of minutes later, people are grabbing, a small handful, and then later they're grabbing more and more and trying to eat and consume it faster. It's because your brain is saying, I love this, whatever, this is good, keep doing that, whatever it is, more. And it's like cracking a whip, a whip to you. I watch myself. I've noticed myself do this with popcorn, very, very heavily salted popcorn, and I've also watched other people do it, and it's a thing. Extraordinary that we're so addicted to salt. If we crawled out of the ocean. Well, we didn't really crawl out of the ocean at one point, but I can only imagine that there is a connection with the ocean, with the salts. That kind of people who live only in fresh water, I can't imagine what that would be without salt. Imagine living without salt, or sugar for that matter.
It'll be. Yeah, you'd live better. I mean, look, the truth is we have to replace minerals that our body loses. That's the thing, right? It's a fact.
Can't say you can't have salt. You need salt.
Yeah, you do. But you have to salt replaces the minerals you lose in your sweat. If you don't sweat, so if you don't exercise, right, you don't lose enough through other bodily movements. You don't lose enough salt there. But if you do exercise heavily, or you live in a country that's really hot, salt is a thing. Certainly in the Australian outback, a friend of mine, his father or grandfather, I think grandfather, still have a farm out there, and he spent his youth there. And it was really salty food. To this day, he eats really salty food. And it's because he used it from the outback, because you sweat so much. So clearly you drink a lot of water, but water alone doesn't replace all the minerals. So you have to have quite salty food. It's just something that it's a habit for him. And in his case, of course, if you do sweat it out, it doesn't cause your blood pressure to rise, because salt in your body, in your blood specifically, it raises your blood pressure. Okay, so that's why people with a chronic heart disease and such are on a low salt or no salt diet. That's what you don't want your blood to get thicker and thicker. That's not something that's good, right? It's a bad thing. Thick blood, bad. Okay, thick blood, bad. But look, we've only got 4 minutes or so left, a few more minutes. I do want to mention very quickly that this is listener-funded radio. What does it mean? It means there's no corporate sponsorship here for the station that Nighthawk and his friends run. It's entirely listener-funded, meaning you can donate or subscribe or buy things even off the website. And if you wanted to buy something, you could go and click on the sponsor ads. There might even be stuff that you are interested in or could use. So you could click through to the sponsors that are appearing on the station's website, revolution.radio. Once again, revolution.radio. Go there, subscribe if you want, donate if you can, or maybe click through to the sponsors and see what they have for you. I mean, there's some good stuff there. But I do recommend to subscribe to the archives and listen to that. Dave has. I haven't because, well, I haven't got time to turn around in a day. It's my life is not designed for things to be done for me, unfortunately, at this point. Once I retire, I'm sure I can. Right now, but not so much. So please do go ahead and support the station. You will support us. We do not get paid for this. We do it because it's great to have a platform. Gas back for 2 hours, I guess, to all of you. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you find the other hosts interesting as well. It's a wide range of topics that are being covered on this station, and certainly not everybody agrees with everybody else, but that's the beautiful nature of this kind of discourse. Everybody brings something to the party. It's like a potluck thing, right? And hopefully everybody can also take something out of it. There might be some good information, some bad information, some middling information, but it'll always be information, and it will always be information that you won't necessarily get within the mainstream media. Okay, it's important to get other news sources. 100 years ago, maybe less in fact, there were thousands of owners in the news and media world. Radio stations, newspapers, television stations. Of course, it used to be telegraph and newspapers before that, but over the last 60, 80 years, television and radio came into it. There were many owners, thousands, like I said, thousands of owners, right? Today, the majority of the media is owned by 6 corporations. Think about that for a second. 6 corporations. Do you ever get the same news on different channels? Oh, there's a shock. But yeah, look, we got a few seconds left. Donate, please. Subscribe if you can. Thanks for that. And don't go away after the break. Within the mainstream, we're going to talk about media. Giants with double-rolled teeth, flattened heads, and 6 fingers.
All of the fingers and all of the heads. And take the time to donate as well, if you can. Thank you. See you on the other side of the break.
But over the last 60, 80 years, television and radio came into it. And there were many owners, thousands, like I said,
You're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5.95 a month in Australian dollars. I'd like to say hello to all the new listeners we have. Thank you very much for coming along with us on this journey of discovery. It sounds a bit lame, doesn't it? A bit trite. But that's what we're doing. Every single answer deserves more questions. So if you have a question, you get an answer. There's more questions to ask. Well, we just keep seeming to find more and more things to research. Mickey's alive. And look, we're halfway through show number 380. And we're talking about giants.
80 and 300 doesn't sound... Next one will sound better.
That's right. 80 and 300. Yep. Well, you got to have something, I suppose. Look, remember, this is a tinfoil hat zone. Not all the topics are tinfoil hat topics, but when we put our own stretch on it, that's the tinfoil. All right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, Mickey, there was some Denisovian hybrids, weren't there?
Correct. There certainly were. And in fact, the Cherokee Indians, or North American tribes, called them the Moon People, interestingly enough. The Utes and Paiutes spoke of a hideous race of cannibals 10 feet tall living in caves. And the Choctaw also have an account of the race of giants that first colonized the Ohio Valley. Now, if you cast your mind back, the Ohio Valley is also famous for its snake mounds, or mounds in general. It's the valley of it's the country of the mound builders. Yeah, Ohio. Very interesting. Now, this is taken from Old World Roots of the Cherokee, Chapter 5, America's Middle Ages, page 78 to 79. It's a book that I have ordered. Believe it or not, it's expensive too, I'll tell you. But soon I will have it because it seems like a very interesting book. So I'll have it in my library very soon. Old World Roots of the Cherokee. Now, this is what it says. What kinds of Indians lived in the territory of the Choctaw and Chickasaw carved out for their new home? According to the traditions, reports Cushman, as confirmed by excavations of bones in Tennessee, it was a race of white giants. The tradition of the Choctaw told of a race of giants that once inhabited the now state of Tennessee, and with whom their ancestors fought when they arrived in Mississippi in their migration from the west, doubtless. Their tradition states the Nahulo, which is the race of giants, and literally translated it means wizards, was of wonderful stature, but as the tradition of the mastodon, which used to be found on the Great Plains, so this was also considered to be but a foolish fable. Now, we do know that mastodons actually existed in America, right? But again, it was dismissed along with the giants. The creature of a wild imagination. When lo, the exhumed bones again prove the truth of the Choctaw tradition. These giants could have been graffinesques, meaning, like in stature, they're quite proportional and beautifully muscled. Cushman then recounts the discovery in 1880 at a burial mound site near Plano, Texas, of human bones of enormous size. The femoral bone, which is the upper leg bone, if you will, being 5 inches longer than the ordinary length, and the jaw bones so large as to slip over the face of a man with ease. Cushman goes on to identify them with the older occupants of North America called Allegheny or Tallegans. Many historians, moreover, speculate that they were the builders of the Adena Mounds. Yeah, we spoke about the mounds, like I said earlier. As for the Chickasaw, Cushman notes that they have no record of their history before the colonial period, although it is assuredly as Choctaws being one tribe and people until the division made by the two chiefs, Chickasaw and Choctaw, many years after their arrival and location east of the Mississippi River. River. Of the Natchez, Cushman records that they, if tradition may be believed, also came from Mexico, where they had lived for centuries. A story was told by the Comanches in 1857, and this is the story. Innumerable moons ago, a race of white men, 10 feet high, and far more rich and powerful than any white people living now, here inhabited a large range of country, extending from the rising to the setting sun. Their fortifications crowned the summits of the mountains, protecting their populous cities situated in the intervening valleys. They excelled every other nation which has flourished, either before or since, in all manner of cunning handicraft. They were brave and warlike, ruling over the land they had wrestled from its ancient possessors with a high and haughty hand. Compared with them, the pale faces of the present day were pygmies in both art and arms. They drove the Indians from their homes, putting them to the sword, and occupying the valleys in which their fathers had dwelt before them since the world. At length, in the height of their power and glory, when they remembered justice and mercy no more, and became proud and lifted up, the Great Spirit descended from above, and Dave, listen to this, sweeping them with fire and deluge, water that is, of course, from the face of the earth. The mounds, I know, right? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? The mounds, that is the speaker chief rolling thunder and the Spanish listener, so this is the we here. The mounds we had seen on the tablelands were the remnants of their fortresses, and the crumbling ruins that surrounded us all are all that remain of a mighty city. The word Nahulu or Naholo is now emphatically applied to the white race and no other. The Nahulu were of white complexion according to Choctaw tradition, and were still an existing people at the time of the advent of the Choctaw to Mississippi, concludes Cushman on page 153. In agreement, the Indian trader Adair often refers to the Nani Ishtahulu as departed white ghosts, vested with spiritual powers, whose descendants were priests and they...
Hang on.
No worries.
Where are you? Priests and magicians.
Their
that's right.
cries?
That's right. Their cries and magic spells could still be heard in the mounds, like those at Okmulgee. These references contribute to the suspicion that the Indians who precede Asiatic tribes from Mexico were, as we would say today, Caucasian. About exactly a year ago on this blog, we published a post about Neanderthals in America, mentioning also the peculiar archaic skeleton that is now a roadside attraction in Arizona called The Thing. In the meantime, we acquired a copy of Fritz Zimmermann's book, The Nephilim Chronicles, which reproduces over 300 historical accounts of giant skeletons. Many are associated with the earliest mound sites in America, but Zimmermann's survey of this worldwide phenomenon ranges from the hunter-fisher people of northeast Europe and red paint people whose movements were circumpolar to the giants of the Bible, noted by the Babylonian Talmud as having double rows of teeth, and giants remains in the British Isles. This is pages 157 to 65. Navajo legends speak of the Starnake people, a regal race of white giants endowed with mining technology who dominated the West, enslaved lesser tribes, and had strongholds all through the Americas. They were either extinguished or went back to the heavens. There's the message right there. The name may be a corruption of the biblical race known as the Anakim. Numbers were 13, 33. Well, what's Doot, Meki? 1 and 28.
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, that's right. The name Og, or Hebrew for chief, appears to be characteristic, and that's Zimmer makes reference to that. The Ogham alphabet is attributed to this cultural founder, and that would be Og. Certainly, many of the mound sites uncovered in the 19th century tell a story of a constant warfare by incoming Asiatic tribes against the giants occupying the land. One grisly scene showed thousands of skeletons, male, female, and young, heaped in a mass grave with warriors' skulls pierced by arrows. It would appear that, as these Aboriginal inhabitants of the Ohio Valley were gradually displaced, some members of their society went over into the ranks of the new conquerors, bequeathing a strain of great stature still noticeable, for instance, in the Mobilian chief Tuscaloosa and De Soto's Indian queen, or Meki, that one?
Coffee-Tachiki.
Thank you.
Coffee-Tachiki.
Both of whom were still to be 7 feet tall. Meki, we'll read these alternatively. So, we are struck by the following traits of this giant race or ethnic group from human prehistory. Mother, goddess, religion.
Copper, not bronze axes.
Wow. Polished slate tools, including fishing plummets, which were apparently regarded as sacred.
The belief that the grandmother moon was the repository of souls.
Wow. Diet emphasizing shellfish, for which the double row of teeth probably was selected as an evolutionary advantage in their beachcomber origin out of Africa? Question mark.
Question mark, important there. Building of fish weirs in North American rivers to trap migrating eels.
I've actually seen those fish weirs in lots of places around the world. Certain vegetarian habits, that's wild rice, for instance. Oh, I love wild rice.
It's good, isn't it? Absolutely. Inscriptions on artifacts, especially pipes, often buried with the dead.
Use of coal and petroleum.
Weaving and, of course, the accompanying looms.
Knowledge of seafaring, mathematics, and engineering, including canals and irrigation.
A burying of a dog with a child to guard the latter in the afterlife.
A language apparently Afro-Asiatic and close to Semitic tongues.
And I'll get back to that in a second. Kingcraft. Nobles were buried in seated positions on thrones surrounded by a courtry of the retainers. Now, just think about that language there for a second. As we have stated earlier, we believe that the Anunnaki and the Gigi had their origin in the Middle East. In fact, in the two-stream land, the Levant, whatever you're going to call it. And, of course, that is also the home for the Hashemites and Semites, the Semitic people. And you find many references in the Bible referring to that as well. You know, of course, one of the more famous ones, David and Goliath. So, not completely astounding if you think about it, because they would have, of course, come from somewhere, and then it makes sense that, you know, the surviving children or the surviving peoples that had been born out of the union between the Igigi, let's call them, and human mothers, you know, would have populated the world, would have gone around, would have founded, most likely, a civilization, which was then destroyed in the great, catastrophe that befell the Earth 15, 20,000 years ago, or, you know, that time frame anyway. And then the survivors would try to struggle to repopulate those lost centers. And they probably were successful in certain areas of the world because they still had more knowledge, more know-how, more expertise than most of the other peoples at the time. All right? So it is interesting. In fact, more expertise than the race that was created to replace them. Us.
That's right.
Us. Out of clearly the stock that existed prior, because there was interbreeding, and make no mistake, if you can breed with each other, you are the same species.
That's right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, just to be very, very clear about that. Same species. Now, when Denisovan man was first discovered, we had just a finger bone to go on. We can only extrapolate the look of the skull. Geneticists conjecture, however, that it was an Austronesian type. We suggest, this is the authors, not us, but the authors here, suggest that a modern prize of science will belong to the geneticists who can derive ancient DNA to study and classify from the bones of giant hominids that are unavoidably plentiful in the archaeological and mythological records of humankind. Maybe the owner of the thing that Dave mentioned earlier will allow researchers to borrow one of the femurs for laboratory analysis and measurement. If that's not possible, the Smithsonian, Carnegie Institute, and dozens of local historical societies throughout the Midwest have basements and storage facilities brimming with these relics of American history, and they can, of course, not be made public because they fly in the face of what we consider the accepted history of the world. And this is really an important thing here. There is evidence, and Dave, just to let you know, there are two things. One was a newspaper article, I think, that you shared about the Ohio. I think it was. I can't. You have to. What was it? It was a. Hang on, let me tell you.
Ohio giants found.
There you go. That's it. It is. Yeah, Ohio River. Exactly. And in fact, what we just discussed here.
That's right.
Now I've gone back to the Washington Post. Yeah, I want to find the original article. So the original article was from the Washington Post, October 27, 1912. Washington Post, October 27, 1912. I'm just about to subscribe to the Washington Post and hopefully get access to the archive so I can find those articles, right? That's what I'm going to do next, because I want to see the original articles, right? I really do. And you can actually still get them. They've all been, I guess, they're no longer microfiche. They have been pulled. Yeah. In fact, what the Washington Post details, pages available, 206,398. Years available, 1904 to 1922. Wow. So I'm hoping that I can find a whole bunch of stuff in there. It'll take a little bit of time to get through. But anyway, the point is, these archives of the old newspaper pages exist. Now they're online, they probably will exist into perpetuity. The other, I just shared a YouTube clip on in the chat room, everybody, and you may have seen it. It's only, I don't know, 20 seconds or 40 seconds long, whatever it is. It's clearly somewhere in Asia. I want to say Japan. It looks Japanese to me. And there's a guy there dressed like a sumo wrestler. Interestingly enough, Dave, though, I don't know if you had time to look at it. It looks like the body of a little person. You know, when I say little person, you know, I'm talking about the genetically small people that we have, right? The little people. And the body shape is like that. It's reminiscent of the dwarfs that Thor visits in Ragnarok. Remember when he gets a new ex-mate and he visits the Starfort, and he goes and visits the dwarfs. Now the dwarfs actually are giants, but with little people's bodies. So the arms are proportionally shorter in comparison to the body. The head is quite large. So this person looks like a little person, except about, looking at them, probably 10 feet tall, walking.
Yeah. Through a crowd, right?
Through a crowd in black and white. So I look at it, if it's trickery, if someone made that video, it's extremely well done. I've never seen a fake video like that.
That video a long time ago. So it's not a new thing.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while, and before that kind of special effect was available on a desktop. So it looks to me like it's valid.
Yeah. So I'd really like to understand. If anybody knows anything else about that in the chat room. I'm going to see if I can find any more information. The language is posted, and I haven't been able to decipher. It could be some kind of. I think it's in South or East Asian language. I mean, anyway, I'll get to the bottom of it. But I've seen another. There was another video, not the same, obviously, which showed a very tall human being. A Chinese person, though very, very tall, which had sort of the features of Bigfoot, and the answer, and the video was purportedly showing the child of a woman that had, maybe was raped by a Yeti or Bigfoot, if you will, and that was uncanny. Again, a black and white video that I saw on YouTube, and it very much in keeping with the style of the time. 100 years ago and whatnot. It's this kind of visual evidence, unless of course you dismiss it out of hand saying it's a hoax, is very compelling. And look, you can't argue away physical evidence. It's there. Now we have to figure out why is it there, right? This is really the kicker here. It's fascinating stuff, Dave. It really is. Mm-hmm. We have a bit of hard science here again. I don't know if I want to read out all of it, so let me just pick and choose through it very quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
And then we get what happens, but we need to share with our customers, with our listeners, is what really happens on our body. So let me just skip very quickly through adult. It's the article is called Adult Height. It's an abridged article that I've shared here with you. So I want to just quickly skim through it. A human height is another simple and accurate biomarker integrating both environmental and nutritional conditions encountered during fetal development and childhood. This recent study by the NCD Risk Factor Collaboration offers a large overview of secular trends in adult height for most countries in the world. The average gain in adult height for cohorts born between 1896 and 1996 was estimated at 8.3 plus or minus 3.6 centimeters for women and 8.8 plus or minus 3.5 centimeters for men. So on average, between 1896 and 1996 grew by about 8 centimeters, which is just shy of 3 inches. Oh, it's about 3 inches. The analysis of growth patterns within world regions reveals that the gain in height during the last century was not linear. During the last 3 decades have shown a similar plateau in the tallest populations among high-income countries from North America to Europe. This recent asymptote suggests we're approaching another of our upper limits, potentially, right? Implications. For millennia, it was difficult to test whether physiological limits do exist in humans because no variation was accurately measurable. It is now possible to ascertain the biological limits of the human species through sports records, lifespan, or height. These traits no longer increase, despite further continuous nutritional, medical, and scientific progress. This suggests that modern societies have allowed our species to reach its limits. We are the first generation to become aware of those limits. Now, I want to quickly say something about that. I think that is true. I honestly believe that is completely true. But I believe that these limits are artificial. I think the limits we are reaching now, with good nutrition and good lifestyles and so forth, is completely artificial. And it was imposed upon us. It was imposed in our genetic makeup. It was something that we were programmed to reach. So we have a limitation on how long we live, and with that was also a limitation on what we can achieve physically, and I believe mentally to some extent. I mean, why have a big brain like we do? And while it's a fallacy to say that we only use 10%, right, that the brain really does work that way, we certainly don't seem to be using all of its capacity. So why have it? You understand what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to have such a energy-consuming organ in your body and then you don't use it. Because the most of the calories that we need in our body is to keep our brain running. Okay? Now, the abstract, right, is being taller is associated with enhanced longevity and high educational earning. The paper reanalyzed 1,472 population-based studies, and with measurements of height on more than 18.6 million participants to estimate mean height for people born between 1896 and 1996 in 200 countries. So it's a fairly comprehensive study, right? People from different countries, they found, go to different heights. I find it always really interesting when people come up with the, I don't know, they're the things that you would have expected anyway, but now we can actually have statistical proof this is true. Like, oh, if you shoot yourself, you probably will die. It's okay, we've now proof for this. It's a fact. Now, the difference in height might be due partly due to genetics, but most differences in height between countries have other causes. For example, children and adolescents who are malnourished or who suffer from serious disease will generally be shorter as adults. This is important because taller people generally live longer, are less likely to suffer from heart disease and stroke, and taller women and children are less likely to have complications during and after birth. Taller people may also earn more and be more successful at school. Okay. However, they're also more likely to develop some cancers. So it's interesting, Dave, isn't it, that markers that for tall people also are usually linked to longer lifespan, and that in turn, of course, is linked to cancer. Because what we've learned in our lives so far is, if you live long enough, you will get cancer. If you live long enough, you will get cancer. And why is that? Because the copying process in your body breaks down. And why is that? Because we have a built-in kill switch, which limits our lifespan.
Boom.
Wow. Boom. Yes, that's right. Okay, so one follows the other. None of these should be surprises to anyone listening. This is the crazy thing, Dave. It's just not right.
Yeah, completely.
Look. Now, the pace of growth in height has not been uniform over the past century. The rise in height in Japan stopped in people born after the early 1960s. In South Korea, the flattening began in the cohorts born in the 1980s for men, and it may have just begun for women. As a result, South Korean men and women are now taller than their Japanese counterparts. The rise is continuing in other East and Southeast Asian countries like China and Thailand, with Chinese men and women having surpassed the Japanese, not yet as tall as South Koreans. The rise in adult height has also seems to have plateaued in South Asian countries like Bangladesh and India at much lower levels than in East Asia. So, for example, 5 to 10 centimeters shorter than it did in Japan and South Korea. Again, I think this is all a result of economic prowess, I believe. Now, what they found, please go.
I just want to say that Nighthawk is listening. Thanks, Nighthawk. He said that the telomeres is our kill switch. Absolutely.
Yes, that's correct. That's right.
Yes.
And Nighthawk, thank you for listening. And we've covered that at length. You're 100% correct. It is the telomerase, which is no longer there or functioning to protect us or protect our telomeres. Funnily enough, though, if you develop every cancerous growth in your body switches the telomerase back on to protect its telomeres.
That's right.
And it's been twisted to mean that, we shouldn't really have the telomerase on because it causes cancer. No, that's faulty logic in my mind. And I'm still waiting to be called out on that. Our body switches off telomerase, and then we stop having the perfect copying process or protected copying process, and we start to decay because, it's like a photocopy. It just gets, photocopy, it just gets worse with each iteration. Now, if you had the telomerase back on, protecting the telomeres, the copying process would not lead to a deterioration of our genetic material. Now, I still want to... any scientist, any doctor out there, any medical person, please come out and say you can call BS on that, right? Tell me I'm talking, into hot air here. But the way I see it, it is the switching off of the telomerase, which leads to decay in telomeres, which in turn leads to a decay in our cell integrity, which of course then leads to the advent of cancers and other age-related diseases. And in cancer, you can switch any which you want, is an age-related disease. Now, if you smoke every day and take drugs and drink and eat all the wrong foods, then cancer will find you, irrespective of the telomerase. Okay, less so. but it still finds you. So living a good life, a healthy life, and having the telomerase protection certainly work hand in hand here. So thanks, Dave. But yes, 100%. And thank you, Nighthawk, for chiming in. That's in the chat room, everybody. Please come into if you want. And Nighthawk happens to be the station owner, so that's awesome. It's actually, 4 a.m. for him?
That's right.
In where he lives, which is much appreciated. Now, interestingly here is consistent with, this is now the result or discussion of this test, consistent with individual level evidence on the association between taller height and lower all-cause mortality in adult ages, gains in mean population height in successive cohorts are associated with lower mortality in middle and older ages in countries with reliable mortality data. And I won't bore you with the correlation coefficients here, which are quite high, which demonstrates the large impacts of height gain on population health and longevity. Yeah? Height gain has a positive impact on health and longevity. Further, short maternal stature increases the risk of small for gestational age and preterm births, both risk factors for neonatal mortality and of pregnancy complications. Therefore, improvements versus stagnation in women's height can influence trends in infant and maternal mortality. Right? The study also shows the potential for using height in early adulthood as an indicator that integrates across different dimensions of sustainable human development. Adult height signifies not only fetal and early childhood nutrition, which was included in the Millennium Development Goals, but also that of adolescence. Further, adult height is the link between these early life experiences and NCDs, longevity, education, and earnings. It can easily be measured in health surveys and can be used to investigate differences across countries and trends over time, as done in this particular work, as well as with in country inequalities. All right. Therefore, height in early adulthood, which varies substantially across countries and over time, provides a measurable indicator for sustainable development with links to health and longevity, nutrition, education, and economic productivity. It is good to be tall. It is good to be tall. Okay? Think about it. Think about it. It is really... It says something, and again, this research out there, which of course was completely done independently of us, but it goes to show that the height we should grow to should bring us a lot of advantages. Not only that, once we figure out how to turn off all the kill switches, of which the telomerase is of course the biggest one, we can live healthy, productive lives as giants. Okay, it all goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand. It's crazy stuff. And again, you cannot focus your research only on one area. You must expand your aperture. You have to understand everything. I mean, I don't claim that we understand everything, right? But we certainly like to shine the torch into dark spaces where people might not like to go because the thing is just not interesting. Everything is interesting. Everything is interesting. But Dave, there's one thing I'd like you to share with our esteemed listenership, which is really, really important. Mm-hmm. What really happens in our bodies? What really happens in our bodies?
Thank you for that. Why do most 30-year-olds show few effects of aging, while the effects of aging are so obvious in a 60-year-old person? If wear and tear was the major cause of aging, a 90-year-old person would only have 3 times as much aging damage as a 30-year-old. At the age of 30, people have spent most of their lives with fairly high levels of human growth hormone, or HGH. HGH is responsible for growth during childhood and for the repair and regeneration of human tissue throughout our lives. By the time we reach the age of 30, our HGH levels are only about 20% of their peak levels during childhood. And after the age of 30, well, they continue to decline at about 12 to 15% per decade, and often much more. By the time most of us are 30 years old, our bodies no longer produce enough HGH to repair all the damage that is occurring in our bodies. As our HGH levels continue to decline, the damage that we call aging continues to accelerate. The decline in HGH is not the only cause of the manifestations of aging. Even if our HGH levels remained at the same level as a 25-year-old, we would continue to experience the effects of aging, but those effects would be greatly reduced until we reached a very advanced age. HGH does not affect the root cause of aging as measured by maximum lifespan, but it can certainly affect many of the manifestations of aging. By increasing the levels of HGH in our bodies, we can slow or even reverse many of the manifestations of aging. Gee, they use manifestations of aging way too much in this text. It must be done carefully, though, and certainly under medical supervision. Ideally, this HGH replacement should begin at about the age of 30 years, but HGH replacement can be beneficial at any age above 30. In fact, for older people, HGH therapy can reverse the manifestations of aging by 15 years, up to between 5 and 15 years or more. There is no other single therapy currently available, note that currently available, that can have the impact on the aging body that HGH can have. Growth hormone releasing hormone, which is the GHRH, a substance which declines with age. Increasing levels of GHRH causes the pituitary to increase its output of HGH. The natural production of somatostatin increases with age and causes a corresponding decrease in HGH production by the pituitary gland. The production of HGH is controlled by GHRH, GHRP, somatostatin, and other substances in the body. The degree to which changes in the levels of each of these substances is responsible for the decline in human growth hormone varies from individual to individual and is somewhat gender dependent. The only natural occurring growth hormone releasing peptide appears to be GHRELIN. I'll call it ghrelin. Ghrelin is a hormone with many other effects, including being a powerful appetite stimulant. When given to laboratory animals, the animals eat huge amounts of food. The weight gain induced by overeating completely overwhelms the fat burning caused by the growth hormone release, and the animals become obese. Pharmaceutical companies have produced synthetic growth hormone releasing peptides such as GHRP6 and GHRP2, which stimulate HGH in humans but do not increase appetite significantly. The effects of HGH in the human body have been studied intensively for decades, but the factors that affect HGH production remain rather complex and mysterious. Part of the reason for this is that the quantities of these substances produced by the body are on the order of 1 milligram per day in adults. Most people only produce about a teaspoonful of these substances during their entire adult lives. To make the HGH situation even more complex, HGH is normally released in pulses or bursts throughout the day. There are usually 10 to 20 surges of HGH release, with the largest release occurring shortly after you fall asleep. Is there any advantage to having HGH released in pulses? Or is this simply the body's most efficient way of producing HGH? Nobody knows the answer to this important question, although there seems to be more evidence that the pulse pulsatile release of HGH is important for human health. Meki.
Interesting, isn't it? It's again sleep that's the important trigger here.
It always comes back to sleep.
It sure does. It sure does. Somatostatin. So somatostatin, which Dave mentioned earlier, is also known as a growth hormone inhibiting hormone, which is a GHIH. God, they love their acronyms. Or by several other names, is a peptide hormone that regulates the endocrine system and affects neurotransmission and cell proliferation via interaction with G-protein coupled somatostatin receptors and inhibition of the release of numerous secondary hormones. Somatostatin inhibits insulin and glucagon secretion, which is not a good thing. Somatostatin has two active forms produced by the alternative cleavage of a single pre-protein, one consisting of 14 amino acids, the other consisting of 28 amino acids. Among the vertebrates, which is us, there exist 6 different somatostatin genes that have been named SS1, SS2, SS3, SS4, SS5, and, yes, SS6. Only zebrafish have all 6. The 6 different genes, along with the 5 different somatostatin receptors, allow somatostatin to possess a large range of functions. Have only one somatostatin gene, SST. Actions. Somatostatin is classified as an inhibitory hormone and is induced by low pH. So drink the right water, for crying out loud. Its actions are spread to different parts of the body. Somatostatin release is inhibited by the vagus or vagus nerve. Okay, so it is the somatostatin, among other things, that is killing us. Okay.
So if you didn't hear it, humans only have one somatostatin gene.
Yep. Now, interesting,
one.
Right? Mm-hmm. Zebrafish have all 6, and clearly others have other vertebrates have many more. So, to me, it sounds like this might be something that was added at some point. Potential. Hey, well, who am I to say this? What? Crazy talk now. Tinfoil hat zone.
But doesn't it? In fact, Meki, doesn't it sound like overeating and bad diet and poor sleep can induce it as well, right?
100%. 100%. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Which brings us, in fact, I think we have time actually, Dave. You can take it here. Which brings us to the final tinfoil hat zone for this show cycle. The Great Smithsonian cover-up: 18 giant skeletons discovered in Wisconsin. So again, tinfoil hat zone. Please strap into your vehicle. Suspend all reality modulation, and please no flash photography or sticking out of limbs out of your vehicle, because they will be snapped off by opposing viewpoints. It is always harder to hold 2 opposing views in your mind and not go insane. So please enjoy the ride, Dave.
Scientists are remaining stubbornly silent about a lost race of giants found in burial mounds near Lake Delavan, Wisconsin, in May 1912. The dig site at Lake Delavan was overseen by Beloit College, and it included more than 200 effigy mounds that proved to be a classic examples of the 8th century woodland culture. But the enormous size of the skeletons and elongated skulls found in May of 1912 did not fit very neatly into anyone's concept of textbook standards. They were enormous. These were not average human beings. First reported in the 4th of May 1912 issue of the New York Times, and the 18 skeletons found by their Peterson brothers on Lake Lawn Farm in southwest Wisconsin exhibited several strange and freakish features. Their heights ranged from 7.6 feet and 10 feet, and their skulls, presumably those of men, are much larger than the heads of any race which inhabit America today, even basketballers. They tend to have double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes, and like humans, came in different races. The teeth in the front of the jaw are regular molars. Heads usually found are elongated, believed due to longer than normal lifespan. One must wonder how much can they lift if twice the size of an average human today. And lift means strength. Are these the giants the Bible and many other civilizations have in their history and painted on their walls?
Sorry. I need to interrupt just for 1 second because you said something very, very important. Heads usually found are elongated, believed due to longer than normal lifespans. When we discussed this initially, we said, I believe that at least there are a lot of stages in human growth we simply don't experience. Mm-hmm. Double rows of teeth might be one. The elongation of skulls might be another. There are cultures on this planet which emulate the elongated skull. So what they do is they take young children, because when you're young, up to the age of, I want to say, probably 2 or 3, but probably a little bit longer, your skull is a fairly malleable kind of thing. So it protects the child from serious brain injury because it's malleable, it's soft. It also means that you should take a bit more care, but it allows some flexibility. And certainly, a hard skull could not be birthed. So as you squeeze yourself through the birth canal as you're born, your skull is compressed. Okay, so it needs to be flexible at that point, and it only hardens as you get older. My point is that some cultures on this planet take these young children and put them into a contraption, which I imagine is somewhat painful. That then turns their skulls into an elongated shape. We found evidence of that in Egypt, in South America, and other places. Right? And now those are the ones that were elongated artificially. They are also skulls, and we can tell this by the skull muscular attachments that we can still detect are that way naturally. So we know that these skulls occur naturally as well. So someone must grow them naturally. And what's being stipulated here is, could it be because it is due to a longer lifespan? So if we lived long enough, would our skulls elongate? And the answer is, well, who knows? They are elongated skulls. They exist. It's a thing. So we don't have to, worry about that. But are they grown that way, or do they grow that because we lived a lot longer? Sorry, Dave. Keep going. Okay, the Bible in Genesis 6:4. So this is again from the text here. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old men of renown. Now, this is faulty logic to any scientist out there because, we are using religious and cultural history to fill a hole in science. But is it? Because these are still stories that exist. Over 200 giant digs have been found in recent years. Giant skeleton finds have not made the local national news since the 1950s for the most part. It seems, in most people's opinion, due to the fear that people would question evolution. If anything, a de-evolution. In 2002, National Geographic reported a dozen Cyclops skeletons found in Greece that stood 12 to 15 feet tall. That is 3 humans tall, so 3 humans on top of each other. 1 eye socket. Apparently, giants in history are typically cannibalistic in nature. And if you remember this, some of the flood stories talk about the punishment of the flood being brought about because of incidences of cannibalism. Again, it all goes full circle. Remember that? We spoke about that. A couple of the flood myths mentioned cannibalism specifically that brought about the demise of the culture before us. The reason why the author is bringing up giants will all tie into politics and so forth. Now, look at a basketball hoop and add 5 feet. Right? That's how tall these giants were. Basketball hoop and 5 feet extra. Greek mythology talks about war with cyclopses, learning they had to be brought down by taking out their legs, rendering them slow and helpless. Of course, that makes sense. American giants, which are red-haired giants, were found with Egyptian writing on their tombs, and they were found in multiple locations. And there's a newspaper article here. It's a clipping from an article in the New York Times. I'm going to read it out in full. Published May 4, 1912. Strange skeletons found. Indications that tribe hitherto unknown once lived in Wisconsin. And it's a special to the New York Times. Madison, Wisconsin, May 3. The discovery of several skeletons of human beings while excavating a mound at Lake Delavan indicates that a heretofore unknown race of men once inhabited southern Wisconsin. Information of the discovery was brought to Madison today by Maurice Morrissey of Delavan, who came here to attend a meeting of the Republican State Central Committee. Curator Charles E. Brown of the State Historical Museum will investigate the discoveries within a few days. Upon opening one large mound at Lake Lawn Farm, 18 skeletons were discovered by the Phillips brothers. The heads, presumably those of men, are much larger than the heads of any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the head slopes straight back and the nasal bones, protrude far above the cheekbones. The jawbones are long and pointed, bearing a minute resemblance to the head of the monkey. The teeth in the front of the jaw are regular molars. There were also found in the mounds the skeletons, presumably of women, which had smaller heads but were similar in facial characteristics. The skeletons were embedded in charcoal and covered over with layers of baked clay to shed water from the sepulchre. So that's the article that was published May 4, 1912, Dave, which brings us to the mystery of the Wisconsin Giants.
Was this some sort of prank, a hoax played by local farm boys or a demented taxidermist just for fun and the attention of the press? The answer is no. The Lake Delavan find of May 1912 was only one of dozens of similar finds that were reported in local newspapers from 1851 forward to the present day. It was not even the first set of giant skeletons found in Wisconsin, for that matter. On the 10th of August 1891, the New York Times reported that scientists from the Smithsonian Institution had discovered several large pyramidal monuments on Lake Mills near Madison, Wisconsin. Madison was in ancient days the center of a teeming population numbering not less than 200,000, the Times said. The excavators found an elaborate system of defensive works which they named Fort Aztalan. The celebrated mounds of Ohio and Indiana can bear no comparison, either in size, design, or the skill displayed in their construction with these gigantic and mysterious monuments of earth. Erected, we know not by whom and for what purpose we can only conjecture, said the Times. On the 20th of December 1897, the Times followed up with a report on the 3 large burial mounds that had been discovered in Maple Creek, Wisconsin. One had recently been opened, and as a quote, "In it was found the skeleton of a man of gigantic size. The bones measured from head to foot over 9 feet and were in a fair state of preservation. The skull was as large as a half bushel measure." It's like a bag of wheat, I think, a bushel. Some finely tempered rods of copper and other relics were lying near the bones. Giant skulls and skeletons of a race of Goliaths have been found on a very regular basis throughout the Midwestern states for more than 100 years. Giants had been found in Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio, Kentucky, and New York, and their burial sites are similar to the well-known mounds of the Mound Builder people. The spectrum of the Mound Builder history spans from a period of more than 5,000 years, from 3400 BCE to the 16th CE, a period greater than the history of ancient Egypt and all of its dynasties. There is a prevailing scholarly consensus that we have an adequate historical understanding of the peoples who lived in North America during the period. However, the long record of anomalous finds like those at Lake Delavan suggests otherwise.
I know, right? crazy stuff. The Great Sismonian Cover-Up. And we're just going to read that. There's a couple more things we can share next week. But it has to be a giant cover-up. In fact, we will start here next week. Why are there public displays of gigantic Native American skeletons at natural history museums? The skeletons of some Mount Millisax are certainly on display. There's a wonderful exhibit, for example, at the Aztalan State Park, where one may see the skeleton of a princess of Aztalan in the museum. But the skeletons displayed are normal-sized. And according to some sources, the skeletons of giants have been covered up. Specifically, the Smithsonian institution has been accused of making a deliberate effort to hide the telling of the bones and to keep the giant skeletons locked away. In the words of Vine Deloria, a Native American author and professor of law, modern-day archaeology and anthropology have nearly sealed the door on our imaginations, broadly interpreting the North American past as devoid of anything unusual in the way of great cultures characterized by a people of unusual demeanor. The great interloper of ancient burial grounds, the 19th century Smithsonian Institution, created a one-way portal through which uncounted bones have been spirited. This door and the contents of its walls are virtually sealed off to anyone but government officials. Among these bones may lay answers not even sought by these officials concerning the deep past.
There you go.
And,
So,
again, like I said, I know, right?
it says it all.
So that's what it does. We will pause it here. We will pause it here. In fact, that's pretty much the show for today, Dave.
I know. I'm expecting the
and
music
we hope
to start any second too, by the way.
Cool.
Look, I'd like to say hello to everyone in the chat room. We think that looks like Jer Bear is going to be here with us for his show after hours, so that's good news. Well done, Jer Bear, and look forward to that. He always has a great show. I love how he plays music and he has great discussions. If you can do it and you're up, join it. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So the music should be starting any second. Look, I'll just say thanks very much for joining us today, and join us next week for show number 381. My goodness. There's the music.
There's the music.
Take care, everyone. See you later.